Welcome to the deep dive. Get ready to plunge headfirst into the absolutely incredible biology of the honeybee.
Yeah, we've got a great set of sources here, really digging into their anatomy, their physiology, how their bodies work, nutrition, and even that whole microbial world inside them.
That's right. And our mission today is, well, to go beyond just the basics,
Right. We want to pull out the really fascinating bits, the surprising details about how they're put together, how they function.
And we'll definitely focus on how different the workers, queens, and drones are.
Because they really are profoundly different. It's this thing called profound polyphenism, 3 distinct forms.
It's not like us vertebrates at all. Their systems, their bodies. It's almost alien when you look closely.
It really is. Each caste worker, queen, drone has its anatomy just perfectly tailored for its job. It's amazing.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The 3 main body parts, right? Head, mesosoma.
Which is the thorax plus a bit of the abdomen fused on, yeah.
And the metasoma, which is the rest of the abdomen.
Exactly. And we'll mostly use the worker bee as our sort of template, since they do the most varied stuff.
But we'll keep pointing out how queens and drones are different.
Definitely. Those differences are key to understanding the colony.
So the head, that's the command center, the sensory hub.
Pretty much. It's packed. You've got the brain, the sensory organs, feeding parts, critical glands, all in there.
And the antenna, they're not just for smell.
Not at all. They're involved in hearing, gauging flight speed, sensing humidity, really complex.
And that Johnston's organ inside, that helps them decode the waggle dance.
That's the thinking, yeah. It senses vibrations, sound, likely crucial for interpreting those dance instructions.
Sensing sound to get directions, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. Then you've got the eyes, big compound eyes on the side.
Rows of lenses, right. But not one sharp image like ours.
Exactly. Great for seeing movement over a wide area, though.
And then the 3 simple eyes on top, the ocelli.
Yeah, those aren't for seeing pictures. They're more like light meters, helping the bee stay oriented during flight. You know, telling which way is up relative to the sun.
Okay, mouth parts. The proboscis sounds really specialized, like a built-in straw.
It is, but it's way more complex than just a straw. It's actually formed from several mouth parts working together.
And it folds away. That's neat.
Yeah, it folds up when not in use. When it extends, the outer parts make an airtight tube, and the glossa, the tongue, moves inside.
And powerful muscles suck up the nectar.
Right, the cipral pump in the head creates the suction. But it's not just for drinking.
Ah, right. Trophallaxis, that food-sharing thing.
Exactly. And transporting pheromones around the hive, too. Very versatile.
Then the mandibles, the jaws, for chewing.
Well, more for manipulating things. Shaping wax, grooming, fighting other insects, that sort of thing.
And here's a key point. They can't actually bite through human skin, can they?
That's right. Unlike some wasps or beetles, for big threats like us, their defense is the stinger, not the bite.
Good distinction. Okay, glands in the head. You mentioned hypopharyngeal glands.
Yeah, they're the largest. In young nurse bees, they pump out that protein-rich brood food.
But they change function later.
They do. In older foraging bees, they switch to making enzymes for turning nectar into honey, and also some defensive stuff.
Wow. And the mandibular glands, famous for queen pheromone.
That's their main claim to fame, yes. That complex chemical signal that basically tells the whole hive the queen is here and she's okay. They also add a bit to brood food.
And salivary glands.
In the head and the thorax.
Yeah, 2 parts. The head part makes this sort of milky stuff with hydrocarbons.
For telling nestmates apart, like a secret handshake.
Basically, yeah. A chemical password for the hive entrance.
Okay, moving down to the mesosoma, the middle bit. The powerhouse for movement.
That's it. The 3 thoracic segments plus that first bit of the abdomen fused on. It's all about anchoring the legs and wings and powering them.
And the legs aren't just for walking around. They've got special tools. Oh, yeah. Highly specialized. The front legs have a little notch and comb.
For cleaning the antenna, I've seen them do that.
Exactly. The middle legs have a spur or hook used to flick wax scales up from the abdomen.
So they can reach them with their mouth parts to build comb.
Right. And the hind legs, of course, have the famous pollen baskets, the corbiculae.
That smooth concave area with the hairs around it.
Yep. Perfect for packing big loads of pollen or propolis back to the hive. It involves some pretty complex packing behaviors.
Do the legs have other senses too?
There's a subgenual organ in the tibia that senses vibrations through whatever they're standing on.
So they can feel things happening in the hive through the comb.
Likely, yeah. And tarsal glands on their feet pads help them grip and climb.
And wings. 2 pairs hooked together.
Yeah, with tiny hooks called hamillae. So they function as one larger wing surface during flight.
But the flight mechanism is weird, indirect.
It's fascinating. They beat their wings way too fast for direct muscle control for each flap.
So how does it work?
Instead of pulling the wings directly, huge muscles inside the thorax actually deform the whole thorax box.
They squeeze the box.
Sort of. They make it vibrate rapidly. And since the wings are attached to the box, they get vibrated up and down at high speed. It uses the elasticity of the exoskeleton.
Wow. A biological hack for speed.
Pretty much. And inside that thorax is just packed with those massive flight muscles.
You mentioned they get worn out in older foragers.
Yeah, the sources describe them as looking almost shredded. It shows the incredible physical toll of foraging.
They really push themselves metabolically too, right?
Yeah.
Handling heat and stress.
Some of the most extreme metabolic rates and temperature stresses known in the animal kingdom, potentially. Early work saw them cooling off with nectar droplets.
But now researchers are looking at oxidative stress, like cellular damage from working so hard.
Exactly. And how that might link to aging or senescence in bees.
Okay, onto the abdomen, the metasoma. Looks simpler outside, but inside.
Inside is where most of the physiological systems are housed. Digestion, the fat body, circulation, the stinger, more glands.
The digestive system, mostly straightforward, except for the crop.
Exactly. The crop is unique. It's not for digestion itself. It's just a storage sac.
Like a carrying pouch for nectar.
Precisely. For water and nectar, it keeps the nectar separate from digestive enzymes in the midgut. It can get huge when a forager comes back full.
So after the crop, it's the midgut for absorbing nutrients, then the hindgut.
Right. Hindgut includes the ileum and rectum for waste processing, and Malpighian tubules they act like kidneys, filtering waste from the blood, the hemolymph.
Okay, the fat body, not just fat storage.
Oh, much more than that. It's a big, important organ lining the abdomen. And here's a huge difference from us.
What's that?
It stores fats, glycogen, and large amounts of protein. We mostly store fat and carbs, not protein like that.
So it's a protein reserve.
Yes, and it's the main place they make key proteins like vitellogenin. That one's involved in social roles, longevity, immunity, all sorts.
Plus nutrient sensing, detoxification, immune functions.
Yeah.
It does a lot.
It's a real multitasker. Now, circulation, totally different from our closed system.
Right, they have an open circulatory system, no veins and arteries everywhere.
Nope. The hemolymph, their blood just kind of fills the body cavity and sloshes around the organ.
Sloshes? How does it move?
There's a simple tube, the heart, along the back. It pumps the hemolymph from the back towards the head, but it's low pressure.
Crucially, you said it doesn't carry oxygen.
Correct. Oxygen transport is handled by the tracheal system, a whole separate network of air tubes.
So the hemolymph carries what, nutrients, hormones?
Nutrients, waste products, immune cells, and factors, hormones. Basically everything but the oxygen.
Got it. Okay, the stinger. Probably the most famous bee body part.
Definitely most famous trait. And in worker bees, it's specifically adapted for vertebrates.
Because it's barbed.
Exactly. The barbs catch inelastic skin, like ours. So when the bee pulls away, the whole sting apparatus, stinger, venom sac, glands, tears out and stays behind.
Maximizing venom delivery, but fatal for the bee.
Right. And it's important to remember it doesn't usually barb when they sting other insects with harder exoskeletons. They can often sting them multiple times.
So it counters that idea that wasps are worse because they sting repeatedly. A honeybee gives one massive dose to a mammal.
Precisely. And near the stinger is the Koshevnikov gland, releasing alarm pheromone when they sting. Stingers are modified egg-laying organs, ovipositors, so only females have them.
And the venom itself, it's a complex mix.
Oh, yes, a real cocktail. Melittin is the big one. Almost half the venom causes pain, messes up cell membranes.
What else is in there?
Things like phospholipase A2, which breaks down cell walls. Hyaluronidase helps it spread. Neurotoxins like apomin. Plus stuff that triggers histamine release, causing swelling and itching. It's the combination that makes it work.
Phew. Okay, other glands in the abdomen. Wax glands.
Yep. On the underside, the ventral side, they secrete little wax scales.
And the Nisonov gland. For finding home.
That's the one. On the dorsal side, near the tip, releases that homing pheromone. It smells kind of lemony. Tells other bees this way or this is home. And Dufour's gland, what's its role?
Seems related to reproduction in females, maybe egg marking in workers, though its ancestral function was probably lining brood cells.
Okay, stepping back again. General insect systems, the exoskeleton.
Right. Their skeleton is on the outside. Provides support, muscle attachment, protection, and crucially, prevents water loss.
But they have to shed it to grow, right? Molting.
Exactly. And it's complex layers like the epicuticle with wax for waterproofing, then the hard executicle and tougher endocuticle, all secreted by the living epidermis underneath. Flexible bits have resilin.
And getting oxygen, the tracheal system.
Yep, a whole network of air tubes branching throughout the body, starting at openings called spiracles on the sides.
Which they can open and close.
Yeah, to control gas exchange and stop themselves drying out. Oxygen goes straight to the tissues through these tubes.
No blood involved in oxygen transport at all.
None. And that whole system gets shed and replaced during molting, too, at least in the larvae.
Finally, the endocrine system. Hormones controlling everything.
Basically, yeah. Coordinating development, physiology, behavior. Super important in bees for division of labor, caste development, all that social complexity.
Key players being
Neurosecretory cells in the brain, things called the corpora cardiaca and corpora allata. The corpora allata makes juvenile hormone, which is vital for growth, reproduction in the queen, and regulating worker behavior.
Okay, let's really focus now on those differences between the castes, pulling it all together, queens versus workers.
Size is obvious, but the queen's shape is different too, more elongated. She lacks pollen baskets, right?
Right, no pollen baskets, no specialized wax glands. Her proboscis is smaller. She doesn't forage. Her eyes are smaller too, fewer facets.
Fewer sensory plates on her antenna as well.
Yeah, reflects her simpler sensory world compared to a worker navigating outside.
And her stinger is different. Smooth, not barbed.
Correct, only used against rival queens. Her venom is also different, less effective against us, and apparently degrades as she ages.
But the really huge difference is reproduction.
Absolutely night and day. The queen has enormous ovaries, hundreds of ovules, capable of laying over 1,000 eggs a day.
Plus the spermatheca to store sperm from her mating slides.
Millions of sperm stored for years, and she controls whether an egg gets fertilized or not as it passes out.
Workers. Tiny ovaries, can't mate, can only lay unfertilized drone eggs.
Exactly. Non-functional spermatheca, completely different internal setup.
Okay, what about the drones, the males?
Their whole anatomy screams mating machine.
No social structures like pollen baskets or wax glands?
Nope. They don't work in the hive. They just need to fly, find a queen, and mate.
So adaptations for flight and finding queens.
Huge flight muscles, massive compound eyes to spot queens way up high, and really sensitive antennae, way more sensitive than workers.
For detecting queen pheromones from afar.
You got it. And their reproductive system is designed for that one fatal mid-air insemination. The endophilus is complex and breaks off.
Okay, let's switch gears to fuel. Nutrition, nectar, and pollen.
The core diet. Nectar for carbs, pollen for basically everything else, protein, lipids, vitamins, minerals.
And storage is key. Honey and bee bread.
Fundamental to their social life. Getting through winter or dearth, nectar gets turned into honey.
By adding enzymes and drying it out, right, makes it stable.
Yep. Enzymes like invertase break down sugars, glucose oxidase makes it acidic, and reducing water content below 18% stops microbes growing.
Pollen the protein source.
But variable.
Hugely variable. And it's not just total proteins, the balance of essential amino acids. They need 10, just like us.
So a mix of different pollens is best.
Crucial. A single pollen source, even if high in raw protein, can lead to deficiencies in specific amino acids like leucine or isoleucine.
They need diversity. What about fats, lipids? Also from pollen. Need essential fatty acids, omega-3s, and omega-6s. And again, the ratio matters. Too much omega-6 relative to omega-3 has been linked to problems like poor learning. They need sterols too.
And bee bread. Processed pollen. Is it more nutritious?
That was the old idea. But newer research suggests the fermentation and processing is mainly for preservation, making it storable.
So bees actually prefer fresh pollen if they can get it.
Seems that way. Aged bee bread might even cause some nutritional imbalances if it's all they have.
Interesting. And brood food, or royal jelly, fed to everyone.
Yeah, the name's a bit misleading. It's glandular secretions fed to larvae, but also adults queen, workers, drones. Very protein-rich, with unique major royal jelly proteins. Vital stuff.
Can bees eat toxic things?
Sometimes. Certain nectars or pollens have alkaloids or weird sugars, usually diluted in a mixed diet.
But if forage is limited to just one toxic plant,
then it can be a real problem. Think California buckeye pollen or rhododendron azalea nectar. Can harm the bees and even make the honey toxic to humans.
Okay, let's get microscopic. The microbiome. The bacteria living in and on bees.
Yeah, this is a huge area now. Thanks to modern sequencing, we can see who's there.
Larvae have a simpler mix.
Less diverse, more variable. Young ones get stuff like Bombella apis from the jelly. Older ones get more lactobacillus.
And adult workers, they get colonized quickly.
Very quickly. They emerge almost sterile. Within days, through contact with nurses, cleaning cells, eating pollen, they get this stable community, mostly in the hindgut.
And it's surprisingly few core types of bacteria.
Relatively few species clusters dominate. Lactobacillus, Snodgrass, Gilliamella, Bifidobacterium. Those are the main players.
But lots of functional diversity within those groups.
Yeah.
Different strains doing different things.
Exactly. Some Gilliamella strains can break down toxic sugars bees can't handle alone. Some Snodgrassella might deal with pesticides. It's complex.
And queens and drones have even simpler microbiomes.
Much simpler, more variable, reflects their diets and lifestyles. Mostly get microbes from nurse bees.
What about the hive itself? Wax honey.
Also has microbes. Some overlap with the gut ones, but not identical. Bombella apis is interesting, found in the crop and jelly, maybe protective there.
So what's the main job of this microbiome?
Two big things generally for insects. First, metabolic help. Breaking down stuff the host can't, like maybe complex pollen components or fermenting sugars.
Evidence for that in bees.
Some studies suggest bees with a normal microbiome grow better, but the specifics are still being worked out.
And the second function, protection.
Yeah, preventing harmful microbes from taking hold, like competitive exclusion. The good guys take up space and resources. Propolis probably helps shape this nest microbiome, too.
Does it directly help fight disease?
Growing evidence says yes. Lab studies show crop microbes inhibiting foul brood bacteria, but it's tricky.
How so?
One study found giving bees just one core microbe actually messed up the whole community balance and made them more susceptible to parasites.
The whole team matters, not just one player.
It really looks that way. Antibiotic studies confirm this disrupt the microbiome, and bees become more vulnerable to pathogens they'd normally fight off.
Might it prime their immune system too?
That's another idea. Exposure to certain gut microbes might trigger a low-level immune response that keeps the system ready for bigger threats. It's a really dynamic interaction.
Wow. What an incredible journey through the tiny world of the honeybee. We've gone from, specialized leg hairs to venom chemistry.
To their completely different internal systems, circulatory, respiratory.
Their specific nutritional needs, that balance of amino acids, and this whole hidden world of microbes.
It really drives home how specialized they are. And those profound differences between queen, worker, drone, all serving the colony.
Yeah, understanding this level of detail gives you a whole new appreciation for what goes into just, being a bee and the challenges they face.
Definitely. So after all that, what biological bit really stands out to you?
Maybe that indirect flight mechanism, using the thorax like a spring, or just how much the fat body does. It's amazing. What about you?
For me, I think it's that gut microbiome, the way it's taxonomically simple. There's a few core groups, but functionally so diverse and seemingly so important for health. And that finding that the whole community has to be right, that's fascinating.
It really makes you think how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? The legs collect pollen, the crop carries nectar, the microbes help process it, the fat body stores it, hormones dictate behavior.
It's all linked. And it raises that final question, what happens when you disrupt one part? Say environmental stress like pesticides or poor nutrition from lack of diverse flowers.
How does that ripple through all these interconnected systems, affecting individual bee health?
And then ultimately the health and strength of the entire colony. It's such a complex biological puzzle, and the more layers we peel back, the more intricate it seems.